The latest confirmation that the Biden administration's bark is a lot worse than its bite has come following the latest indications of the entities that the US government intends to sanction in connection with the building by the Russians and the Germans of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Just to recap, Nord Stream 2 is a pipeline built under the Baltic Sea by Russia and a consortium of European companies led by Germany and Austria, which will provide pipeline gas directly from Russia to Germany, bypassing the traditional transit states like Ukraine and Poland. It has been deeply controversial and fiercely resisted, both by these transit countries, but also by other countries within the European Union who have wanted or sought to see a more belligerent or confrontational attitude taken by the European Union towards Russia, and also by the United States, which has expressed concerns that the building of the pipeline will increase European energy dependence on Russia. In particular, there has been a strong head of steam against Nord Stream 2 within the US Congress, and the Trump administration had ramped up sanctions to try to prevent it. The German government, led by Angela Merkel, has, however, been strongly committed to Nord Stream 2, and the German business community has been committed to it also. The result is that the pipeline is now almost completed. Over 95% of it has been laid, and the last stretches of this pipeline are being laid as I speak by the Russian pipe laying ship Fortuna, which is currently laying the pipes under the Baltic Sea. Well, until a few weeks ago, when Donald Trump was president, strong measures were being taken by the US government to try to stop the pipeline being completed. There was also a decision by Congress that the US government should report by the 16th of February what further entities connected to the construction of Nord Stream 2 it would sanction. Well, the 16th of February came and went. The Biden administration provided no reports, but it has now apparently done so, and it apparently intends to sanction just two. This is the Fortuna, the Russian ship which is laying the pipes, and KVT Rus, which is the company which owns Fortuna. The problem is that Fortuna and KVT Rus have already been sanctioned by the Trump administration. So the sanctions that the Biden administration is proposing to impose on Fortuna and KVT Rus are simply a recycling of the same sanctions which have been imposed already. The Biden administration, notably, has apparently decided against sanctioning any German or European company or entity which is now directly involved in the laying of the pipes. That all but guarantees, if this sticks, that that Nord Stream 2, the pipeline, will indeed be completed. The talk is that most of the pipe laying, or nearly all of it, will be finished by April, and that the pipeline will finally come on stream sometime in June. The Biden administration has apparently convened an investigation into Nord Stream 2. However, that is not apparently going to report before May, after the major work on laying the pipes has been done, and only shortly before gas comes on stream through the pipeline. So whatever report appears in May will almost certainly be too late to stop the pipeline coming on stream. This has been an extraordinary and bizarre saga. Firstly, why has the Biden administration taken this strange step? Why has it talked about sanctions against Nord Stream 2, but in the event balked against bringing any further sanctions over and above and beyond those which the Trump administration was intending to bring? Well, it turns out that Antony Blinken, the new US Secretary of State, apparently has resisted any proposal to impose sanctions on German companies. The reason is that Blinken is very anxious to improve relations between the United States and Angela Merkel's government in Berlin, and he does not want any step taken which might meet Angela Merkel's disapproval and arouse opposition in Berlin. So the result is that we see sanctions that are toothless, sanctions which some might even say are sanctions in name only, because they will not have any actual effect on the pipeline itself. This apparently reverses a decision which had been made by the Trump administration in its last few weeks, where apparently a decision was made that the US would indeed start to sanction German companies that were involved in any way in work on the pipeline or in receiving Russian gas passing through the pipeline. The Biden administration is not prepared to do that. The Trump administration was. We have the Biden administration now in place of the Trump administration, and the strong measures that were being planned against Nord Stream 2 have not been put into effect. In my opinion, this whole battle over Nord Stream 2 was a misconceived battle right from the outset. Nord Stream 2 was a German idea which Angela Merkel sold to Vladimir Putin back in 2015, at a time when Putin himself was extremely reluctant about building further pipelines to Europe. Merkel wanted to do it because the German business community was anxious to get a hold of Russian pipeline gas, which would provide Germany with cheap gas at a time when Germany's transitioning away from nuclear power and coal. And so that was why she proposed to Putin that this pipeline be built. It is, however, just one pipeline amongst many. This story, the claim that it is going to increase Russian economic leverage over Germany and Europe to any real degree, is a complete and absolute misconception. The Russians know perfectly well that if they ever try to use gas deliveries to Europe in order to obtain political leverage over the Germans and the Europeans, that would completely destroy their trading relationship with Germany and Europe, and they have never done it, and they never will. Russia does, of course, have a difficult and complex relationship with some of the transit states. Ukraine, in particular, acted to block Russian gas deliveries to Europe through its pipelines in 2006 and 2009, when it was in dispute with Russia over gas prices. Part of the agenda seems to be to give the Ukrainians leverage over the Russians and the Germans in future negotiations by protecting Ukraine's position as a gas transit state. Unsurprisingly, neither the Russians nor, of course, the Germans are happy with that, and that is why Merkel suggested this pipeline in the first place. However, what is not, I think, widely understood is that Russian exports have now been diversifying away from energy products, though they still form the largest fraction of Russia's total exports. Other export items, primarily food products, but also military equipment, and indeed increasingly finished products, are an increasing part of Russia's export mix. Moreover, the Russians decided some time ago, back in 2014, before the major sanctions that the EU imposed on them were imposed, that they were going to start focusing their energy exports less on Europe and more on China. And in fact, the biggest Russian gas pipelines are now being built eastward towards China, not westward towards Germany and Europe. So this whole issue, this debate, this idea that both Russia and Germany are somehow making dangerous political commitments by proceeding with Nord Stream 2, which gives the US and the Europeans, and indeed the Ukrainians, some leverage over both the Russians and the Germans if Nord Stream 2 is not built, is just misconceived. For the Russians, Ukraine is becoming a less important energy partner anyway, because Russian gas is increasingly moving eastward rather than westward through Ukraine. And for the Russians anyway, gas and oil are becoming less important as part of their export mix. For the Germans, importing gas from Russia does not increase their political dependence on Russia. It is a temporary thing. And in any event, if Ukraine is foolish enough to do what it did in 2006, 2000 and 2009 and cut off gas supplies to Europe and Germany in order to score points off against Russia, all it will achieve by doing that is antagonizing Germany, which is Ukraine's principal partner in Europe and the country that ultimately bankrolls Ukraine's government. So this whole idea of Nord Stream 2 as being this key, crucial, important project between Russia and Germany, which will change the geopolitical picture, is completely wrong. Both the Russians and the Germans can survive perfectly well without Nord Stream 2. However, of the two countries, it is Germany, not Russia, that needs it more, simply because the Germans, as I said, are in the process of transitioning away from nuclear power and coal towards, as they hope, a carbon-free energy mix, and they need gas, which has a low carbon footprint, in order to make that economically possible whilst the transition takes place. So the Germans want the pipeline and the Russians want the pipeline. And given how important the pipeline is to Germany in those terms, it was inevitable that the Germans would strenuously and vigorously resist all attempts, whether by the Ukrainians or the Poles or the Baltic states or the British or indeed the Americans, to make them stop building it. Ultimately, all this issue has done is create problems between the United States and Germany, which weren't needed and should never have happened. Nord Stream 2 for the United States is simply not important enough to justify quarrelling with Angela Merkel and with the German government and with the German business community, who have been, up to now, the US's reliable allies. It was a foolish mistake to launch this campaign against Nord Stream 2, and the extent to which it was done shows, in my opinion, the outsized influence of the Ukrainian and Polish lobbies in the United States, which, not for the first time, have distorted understanding and political opinion there and led the United States along paths which it should never have followed. The outcome of this is that Nord Stream 2 is now almost certainly going to be completed and will indeed come on stream in June. An issue which should never have been given much importance will now inevitably come to seem like a victory for Vladimir Putin and for Russia. It was a victory which the Russians weren't seeking. As I said, Putin was actually skeptical about Nord Stream 2 at the beginning and had to be persuaded by Angela Merkel to go ahead with it. Nonetheless, that's what he did, and he has the satisfaction now of seeing this campaign against Nord Stream 2 create problems between the United States and Germany, and between the US government and Angela Merkel's German government. And he has also the likely satisfaction of seeing the US fail to block a Russian energy project, which it has said it would seek to prevent. There is no point in giving your adversary, if you decide to treat them as an adversary, victories like this. A far better policy would have been for the United States to let Nord Stream 2 work its way through, for the pipeline to be built, for the Russian gas to have passed through the pipeline, for Germany to work away on its transition towards its sunlit, carbon-free future, which so many Germans are so committed to, and for the whole issue of Nord Stream 2 to be left alone to fade into its larger geopolitical insignificance. It shows how completely misguided and out of touch people in Washington have become, that they've made this whole issue of Nord Stream 2 into this great primordial existential one, which it never was. Thank you for joining me for this program. Please look us up on our other programs, which we do on our main channel, the Duran, and also please look up Alex Christophorou's channel. You'll find links under this video. Please check us out on our other platforms, BitChute, Library, Odyssey, Rumble, and the rest. Also, we look forward to your support on Patreon, Subscribestar, PayPal, and via Bitcoin. And last but not least, check out our wonderful shop, the great merchandise you will find there, the amazing magic mugs like this one that I'm drinking from now, the tremendous T-shirts, all 100% cotton with the flags of various countries. This is South Korea, by the way. Long-sleeved and short-sleeved. We also have sweatshirts. We also have hats and hoodies, and you will find them all in our shop. And of course, the feedback of our viewers who buy things from our shop is enthusiastic. So come to our shop, support us on our other platforms, support us by checking us through Patreon and Subscribestar and PayPal and the rest. And of course, I look forward to you joining me for more programs on this channel. And thank you for doing so today.